Alright guys, I'm just gonna jump in it right here because I made a small error with the audio, but right here you can see I already did some of the disassembly already. I already removed the air box, and I'm pointing to what would be there would be the motor mount. I removed that already, and then you can also see the timing belt because I already removed the top timing cover, and you can also see that the pipes for the turbo, the air pipes from the intercooler, already removed those. And also you can see that I also removed the crank pulley in the bottom timing cover. I'm just pointing at the rusty bolts, but yeah, I removed those already. And of course got the car lifted up on jack stands because it does take a little bit of time just to get all that removed, and that doesn't really need to be in the video, so that's why I didn't throw that in there, so I can make it nice, neat, and quick. Then I also took off the accessory belt because you can't have the accessory belt on there either. And you actually have to take the accessory belt off to take off the crank pulley. Okay, now here I'm talking about some issues I was having with the vehicle earlier is because actually this little bracket here that's screwed in with the flap, before I was having drivability issues with the car. It was stumbling and hesitating a lot, especially partial throttle acceleration. I was wondering why it was happening, and there's no check engine light, so it's kind of hard to diagnose and know like exactly where some of these issues are coming. But when I took it out, I said, "Oh, yeah, let me just throw that back in there and screw it in." So hopefully, with this flat being able to operate like it should and being in place, hopefully that'll get rid of some of the drivability issues I was having with my car. But yeah, I'm doing a voiceover, so yeah, I'm just taking a little bit longer, like when I was actually filming, to talk about this versus now. But it is what it is. Okay, now I just need to pop open or pop loose, really, a lot of the fasteners that are on the valve cover. And it just needs, I believe it's a T30 socket that works with the fasteners for the valve cover, at least for this BRM engine. For the older ALH and maybe the newer common rail diesel engines, maybe it's different. Okay, I got the valve cover off, and I'm gonna try to get you in here. But yeah, you can actually see a little bit of worn lobes right there on the number one. Oh, and the cam caps are marked. Well, the number one's not, but the two, the three, number four is not, but number five is, so that does help with the reassembly. I'll just need to do something about a marker or something like that. Write it down or just keep it all in order, nice and neat. Yeah, I think I'm gonna rotate this engine just to see if I can see any more worn cam lobes on it. Alright, now unfortunately guys, I made a little error. This little bit of inside football, but had to get rid of some of the background noise. I know I like hearing some of the birds chirping, me actually getting that ratcheting wrench all rattling and stuff and clicking, but a lot of it's just not going to be in this one. But what you guys can see me here doing is I just need to disconnect the hose. The hose is from the tandem pump, so I just need to get that off so I could take off the camshaft. So I just got to work on these hose clamps right here. And these elbow pliers here, they work okay for these little clamps, but it's not the ideal clamp or the ideal tool to remove the clamps, and that's why I was struggling a little bit with it. Then what I also do not have is one of the nice hose clamps where it's got a hole right where to fit in there. I don't have that either, but that one's not as important as having a different style hose clamp. But yeah, I also have to remove some of the clamps off of a different hose near the bottom. Yep, so now I'm just taking the hose off of the tandem pump right here. Yeah, you can see some of the diesel fuel spilling out. This is actually the first time I've seen diesel fuel, so I didn't even know it was blue. So I thought that was very interesting. And I'm just throwing a rag down there to kind of capture as much as I can. Don't want too much of the fuel to just sit on the transmission, because that's really what's underneath there. I also need to detach the hose on the back side of the tandem pump. So that's just what you're seeing me do here. Then there's that third hose on the bottom port I need to get to and take that hose off also. Yeah, so this just has a little extra clip that I had to just press to get it out. In the kit that I bought, it does have a new gasket. So I'm actually going to put a new gasket on it too. I just want to wipe some of the old oil out of there. And I just got to break loose the bolts for these roller rockers here. Yep, so I got the set on the left. Got those all nice and loosened up. I still got to loosen it up some more before I could take them out. Yeah, I should definitely get an electric ratchet. That'll help me do these repairs a little faster. And I did notice that one bolt on the right side is completely dry of oil versus the other ones are not. So that's definitely something to really look after. Maybe there's oil port that's a little clogged up or something. Maybe I'm not sure, but I don't think it was supposed to be like that. So I'm just breaking loose the other set of the roller rocker bolts here. Now I'm able to remove the other set here. I just want to look at the rollers, just see how they look. They look in perfect condition. And here I'm just loosening up the bolt for the camshaft. Because while it's still attached to the timing belt and the timing belt's still in tension, it's easy to remove it. Well, to remove the bolt. Now I'm here, I just loosened up the tensioner so I could remove the timing belt off of the cam sprocket, but it actually doesn't take that much tension out of the system. So I was really, as you can see, I was just really struggling just to take the timing belt off. So that's like a design that's not that great because it was difficult to take it off and to put it back on. Oh, that was a bear. That was a nightmare for me to do. So I'm finally able to take it off. Now I want to knock it off with my sledgehammer. But it's actually on so tight, I'm actually not even able to just knock it off. So actually what I had to do was just take it to a repair shop that was close by. And they actually had one of the mechanics or one of the technicians actually needed it heated up with a torch. And he probably used a puller too. And I actually didn't throw that in the video either to make sure it's all nice and tight, but I tried to use a puller that I have, a universal puller, but I wasn't able to do it because I couldn't do it by hand. I didn't have a vise or anything to hold the camshaft down to pull it off with the ratchet or with my impact. But my impact actually unfortunately did get stolen, so I'm gonna have to replace that tool later, and it sucks, but sometimes that's just the nature of the beast. So now you just see me here loosening up the bolts for the cam caps. And the bolts for the cam caps need to be replaced along with the bolts for the rocker arms too. And those were in the kit. And for whatever reason, this cam cap for the number one position, it didn't want to come off. So I just struggled a little bit, just had to keep on messing with it, fiddling with it. And sometimes that's really what makes some repairs take a long time. It's just you have to spend that extra hour or 2 hours fiddling with stuff or just doing small adjustments to make sure things get put back together or free to be able to take stuff apart. But yeah, I finally, gave up with trying to use a sledge so I could remove the number 2 to number 4 cam caps here. Sometimes I think VW Group just want to use AAA, or not AAA, but triple square fasteners just to discourage some of us mechanics or this DIY mechanics from doing some of these repairs. Because some of this triple square stuff is just a little inconvenient. Everything's loosened up. Now I'm able to take the camshaft out. So I was looking at it and I did notice that there is some visual damage that you can see on the camshaft. I think I'll also do a separate video to show you guys a little bit closer, just the wear pattern of it. But I'm also just checking the lifters just to make sure they are able to move around in their hole. Then you just need to remove the caps for the camshaft, or sorry, not the caps, but the bearings. And the lower bearings are the bearings that actually had wear on them, and a few of them were worn through pretty good, where you could see where you got to the copper layer and the little exterior. I'm not sure what alloy they use, but definitely looks like copper's one of them. But a lot of the silver alloy lining, a lot of those are worn through on the bottom. But the top cam bearings, those are not worn at all. So even though they look perfect, just to be safe, got to replace those too. I just didn't show it on camera. But yeah, now I just got to remove the lifters, and since they're covered in oil, along with my glove, it just takes a little bit of effort to remove them. And a few of the lifters, they had some wear too, where you could see they weren't perfectly flat anymore. They're concave. So I could tell that was also why the car was running rough, especially when the car was idling uphill. Downhill, for whatever reason, it was okay, but uphill it was when it was running rough. But yeah, here are the new lifters right here. And what's dripping out is actually oil, so since they're pre-oiled, I actually didn't need to worry about that. I was able to just throw them right in. And these are the specially hardened black nitrile lifters. It's nice to see that the ones that came out, there are also the black nitrile lifters. So maybe this job was already done, or maybe they were hardened from the factory. But either way, that was pretty nice for me to see. And I'm just inserting them back in their hole, and they go in nice and neat. Yep, they fit in there just like a glove. And these are the new cam bearings right here. And there's little cutouts right. Yeah, there's cutouts right in the spaces on the bottom, so it's only one way they can fit in place. But you do have to set it so where it's even, the tops are flush with the cam bearing and with the little position that they go in. So after I put them in, I did have to go back and like tap them down to make sure they're actually nice and evenly evenly leveled with the surface. I just didn't I just didn't do that on camera either. Yep, then I have the Driven brand assembly grease. Because when you do a camshaft, you got to make sure you use assembly lube to make sure that the bearings and the camshaft are oiled and have oil supply right at startup or right when you do the break in. Yeah, so you just got to spend a little bit of time throwing the assembly grease on there. Yep, so I just make sure they all get a fairly liberal amount of lube. Guess I just want to go back just to make sure that that cap or that bearing had. Oh, actually no, I'm going back to make sure that the lifters because has some lube on it because why not? There's still a good amount of lube in that pouch, so a little bit of lubrication to help out with those mechanical parts. Make sure they run well. Got to make sure I get all of it out. I think that's the last lifter right there too. Now here's a new camshaft right here. It is the Euro spec camshaft for the BRM. And the camshaft definitely needs the lube too. So you're just gonna watch me over the next minute or so, just making sure I put lube on every single lobe. Because for some things, you gotta make sure you got the lubrication. Lubrication is very important for these moving parts. For other things too, but especially for engines and other mechanical instruments or mechanical tools. So I don't just put them on the main lobes, the biggest ones, but these weird, oddly shaped lobes that are in between the long ones. Make sure I got those, and also did the ones that are for the base circle, I believe it's called, or the ones that aren't lobes at all, just to be sure that the camshaft will not have any scraping, any metal on metal contact for the for startup and for the break-in period. So now that the camshaft and then also installed the cam bearings for on the top cam bearings onto the cam caps. I just didn't film that. But also, it was recommended that for the end cam caps, like I'm pointing here, to put some of the gasket maker on the ends to make sure that you don't have any oil leaks right there. Yes, I got the new bolts into the cam caps. I think it was except for 2 of them. I was too short, but since the car was already apart for a couple weeks already, I really wanted to make sure I just got it in. So, I mean, if need be, I guess I could go back and buy the last 2 brand new bolts, but I think it'll be okay. Yep, then I just got to make sure I put the gasket maker on the other side of the last cam cap. And it doesn't need a lot, so don't got to go hog wild on it. Also got to make sure you got to put it on the right direction too. Ooh, then actually what happened when I was tightening up these bolts for these cam caps is actually just tighten them up on it. I actually don't show everything, but I tighten them up and then I forgot that they needed to be torqued down. Actually, no, I did remember, but I forgot they actually did have the correct torque wrench. So I tightened them up, put the roller rockers on. Then I remember, so I took off the roller rockers, and it came back and torqued them down with my torque wrench. But I just happened to not have that, unfortunately. But I just had to go and do just a little bit extra work, just because I thought I didn't have the right tool, but I did. And then the torque values for these is, I think, like 10 foot-pounds. It's pretty small, so you actually need like a small torque wrench. And I had a small torque wrench, and I actually had to use a adapter, like a 1/4 inch to 3/8 inch adapter. So every now and then, yeah, some of them adapters really be coming in the clutch. And then now I just need to install the cam seal. That's brand new. That also came in the kit. So you just got to put it in place, and then you got to tap it in too, because you can't really seat it all the way in just by just pushing it in, unfortunately. So just use my trusty punch. It actually would have been a little bit better to use a deep socket, but I think I just wanted to use the punch for this right here. Now I'm ready to put the tandem pump on. So I just remove that bolt, because I like to put the bolts right back where they go, because it's easy. Then it's easy to know which bolt goes where, because it's already installed. Versus if you just have it in a magnetic plate But I need to get one of those too. That's a good tool to have. The installing the tandem pump is interesting just because of the little circular piece. It has slots in it that just needs to line up pretty close to the camshaft. So it just took a while to get that lined up perfectly, and then you just gotta fasten the bolts back in and then just plug in the hoses for the fuel lines. So I'm just tightening that bolt in the middle right there. Yep, just putting that hose back in place. Ooh, also what I did off camera is attach the cam sprocket back in place, and then tighten up or route the timing belt and put it back in tension. So I did that. Now I'm just putting more assembly lube onto the camshaft just to make sure. And while I'm adding more assembly lube to the camshaft, you see a small little twig right on the camshaft too. Yeah, I'm eventually gonna grab it. And this assembly lube is really sticky. It seemed more like a strange liquid gelatin type lubricant versus just a thick oil based one. Right now I'm just placing the roller rockers. Then I kept it all nice and neat, just in case the roller rockers needed to go right back in the same spot they were in before. I made sure the back ones went right back to the back two cylinders, and the front two went back to the front two cylinders. So yep, just drop them nice and neat. And I got my trusty drill, because fortunately my impact wrench got stolen. So, well, actually I tightened it up by hand first, then I reached for the drill. Yeah, this is much better. Then also try to do it in the pattern of doing the outside bolts and then going and doing the inside bolts to kind of getting the cross tightening in, to make sure everything's tightened up nice and evenly. Don't want to tighten up one side or the front side of the rockers and then going all the way and then doing the back ones. I want to try to do everything evenly by doing the little cross pattern, because that was recommended by a lot of the Volkswagen forums, and I think, well, I don't think the aftermarket web parts website had it, but the forums definitely mentioned that. So I wanted to make sure I tighten it up in the little alternating outside, then going inside pattern. Then with the torque wrench, just make sure you go one click. I don't remember the torque values for these rocker arms bolts, but it was pretty low too. It was somewhere in the 20 foot-pounds or something real small. And make sure you only click it once, because if you click it more than once, you're torquing it more than whatever specified value you're supposed to torque it at. And then when that's tightened up, yeah, then it's just time to throw on the valve cover. What's cool about this valve cover is the bolts are, oh geez, I can't even think of the name now. I think it's called Captive. And then also have the new valve cover gasket on there too. So I thought just having a valve cover gasket on there would be good. And now you just see me fiddle around making sure I could get it seated all the way down. It's also, since this is the first Volkswagen valve cover I've taken off and put back on, so I'm struggling a little bit. Now here I'm tightening them down just in whatever pattern I want, because I previously thought you could just tighten them up just however you wanted. You didn't have to do a certain pattern and a certain torque spec to tighten down the valve cover bolts to make sure it's sealed. As long as it's tight, it'll be good to go. But I don't have to do the voiceover part for this, but I found out. Alright, maybe it's just for VW, for the Volkswagen Audi vehicles, for those engines. Me just tightening them and doing whatever pattern I wanted to, didn't quite work out, unfortunately. Alright, after finally got that all tightened down, now I'm using the Driven brand conventional 5W30 braking motor oil. And I wanted to use a 5W30 because Volkswagen spec for the BRM is 5W40. And since I didn't really see any 5W40 braking or motor oil, I want to use the 5W specifically to make sure I get good oil flow whenever I first start up and before the engine gets warmed up. So especially the first 5 minutes of me doing the break-in, I want to make sure everything's getting good flow, good oil lubrication in. And then whenever I did the first 500 miles, that's when I wanted to use a 10W40. Especially when I'm driving more than, 5 minutes. I want to make sure I have that heavier weight oil. Now I'm just checking the oil, showing you guys that oil level's pretty good. In the break-in motor oil, it has no cleaning detergent, and that's like the big difference while I'm trying to start up. I actually don't show you guys me starting the engine up because it's the first time I've done this. Actually took a little bit of cranking to get it started up. But I'll show you guys in the next video about that. Alright, I also need to give thanks to Advanced Auto Parts because, well, especially this store specifically, they let me keep my car here. It was actually 3 weeks while I was getting the car working on it. It took a while to really just get everything taken apart, put it back together, see what was going on, just make sure I got everything done nice and tidy. So gotta thank them again. So you guys, if you watch my videos and you work on your own vehicle, hook them up because they help me out. I'm sure they'll help you guys out too. But I need to show you guys what else is still going on with my car. All right, so I'm gonna try to get in here nice and close. But the issue is the valve cover is still leaking a little bit. It's not as bad as what it was because right when I finished it, it was just gushing out oil all over the place. And it was actually running poorly too. So I think just a lot of the air that was flowing into the engine was actually just leaking out. So that created a lot of drivability issues. But once I actually just torqued down all the bolts for the valve cover at the proper spec, then it started running right. But then I redid it and I also put some RTV sealer in. Let's see if I could get a nice shot. I think you can see it a little bit. Got a little bit just going all around. I didn't put a lot because it has a gasket on it, so I didn't feel a need to put a lot at all. And hopefully, unfortunately, after I put it on, I actually needed to drive a little bit to the dealership to get a part. Well, a couple parts. So hopefully the next couple days it'll really seal up. But as of now, it's still leaking a little bit of oil. But at least it is way less than what it was before. And then what I also did off camera, that was off camera because it was just retightening the same bolts. So it wouldn't be that interesting to redo it. But I did also had a battery drain issue, and a lot of that was because I unplugged the speakers because the speakers are messing up. I think it's the transponders or whatever VW calls it. I unplugged those because it was starting to mess up for the radio. Plugged them back in, so now the battery does drain, but not nearly as bad. So I could start it up after it just sitting overnight like it's supposed to. So that's pretty good. So I think the next repair I'm going to have ready for you guys is probably the turbo, because the main oil leak now is the turbo. The turbo's been leaking for quite a while. So once I get some money, I need to order a couple other parts along with the turbo. Unfortunately, since I'm broke, I can't get an upgraded turbo along with the tune. because a lot of times if you go with the upgraded turbo, you have to get a tune with it. But since for this BRM engine code, I haven't really seen any upgraded turbos that'll work with a factory ECU, so I could just go that route and then do the tune in a few months, along with maybe a couple other performance parts, maybe, but that's just have to wait. Right now, just need to work on getting a turbo and then replacing that. Alright, so make sure you guys just like, comment, and subscribe on my videos. Alright, catch you on the next one.